In this week's video, we visit a lovely hidden museum, a Victorian gentleman's residence with a lovely secret story. Let's go. Hello, a warm welcome to Through Lucy's Lens, weekly videos where I go somewhere interesting and hopefully you will find them interesting too. I am a social historian and I am fascinated by the history of people, not politics. It's been a while since I visited a hidden museum, isn't it? What do I mean by hidden museum? Well, it's the type of place that you won't find in the guidebooks. You might only know about it if you're a local. And this is a place that I should have come to many years ago because it's very close to where I live. And it's called Haden-Hill Hall and it's in Halesowen in the West Midlands. Now, I've just come out and it's out. And when I visit these hidden museums, I always think, is it going to be channel worthy or not? And this is, because it's a little bit Downton Abbey, it's a little bit Bridgerton, it's a little bit awesome. So let's go and have a look at Haden-Hill Hall while I tell you the story of the family who lived here. See you on the other side. Let's go. Haden-Hill House today looks like a neat Victorian gentleman's villa. But the story begins much earlier than this, with the land itself and the family who gave their name to it. The Haden family can be traced back here to at least the 14th century, when Halesowen was still a small market town within Worcestershire. By the 16th and 17th centuries, the Hadens had become one of the most prominent families in Halesowen. They married into other wealthy families such as the Barrs and later the Best family, consolidating their land and with that their status. Over the generations, the original house here was altered and extended, but by the 18th century it was regarded as old-fashioned. In 1873, a John Haden-Best inherited the estate, uniting the Haden and Best family names. From then on, the hyphenated surname Haden-Best marked the continuation of the lineage. The family's wealth didn't come from aristocratic titles, but from land ownership, farming, and also alliances. They had the sort of lifestyle that placed them just below title nobility. If we fast forward to the 1870s, following a series of deaths in the family, George Alfred Haden-Best inherited the estate. He was educated, ambitious and eager to modernise. He felt like the old hall no longer reflected the image of a Victorian gentleman. And I must say, the more I read about George Alfred Best, more and more interesting every day. Between 1877 and 1878, he commissioned a new brick-built villa in the fashionable Victorian style, positioned right next to the old hall. This was Haden-Hill House as we see it today. It was never on the scale of a great stately home, but it carried all the confidence of the late Victorian middle and upper middle classes. Crucially, George Alfred decided not to demolish the old hall. This is partly because his old Aunt Mary still lived there, and partly because it had sentimental value for him. So by accident rather than design, both houses survived side by side. A rare pairing of old and new brick reflecting centuries of continuity within the family. George Alfred never married, but he did create a household here. He raised two girls as his adopted daughters, Alice Cockin and Emily Bryant, later called Emmy. They were both local girls from a modest background. And adoption wasn't a legal process until 1926, so it would have been in agreement with the girls' families. Coming to Haden-Hill transformed the girls' lives, and they moved in respectable circles of education, faith and local society. It seems that Emmy came to live at Haden-Hill in 1886 when her own father died, and she later called Mr. Best Dad. It was likely that Alice came around the same time and both the girls were around 16. Records show that they attended Sunday school teachers' conferences in the early 20th century, where they met figures such as mapmaker Cornelius Pike. Emmy wrote extensive diaries, which I'll link in the description notes, as many of you might find them interesting. And this odd threesome went away on holidays together to Saundersfoot and Ilfracombe, and Emmy made lovely notes about their time away together. When George Alfred died in 1921, there was no direct heir, and of course, girls at that point, they weren't getting anything. Instead, the estate was bought by public subscription and opened as a public park in 1922. This ensured that both the old hall and the Victorian villa were preserved for the community. The main rooms that have been restored inside Haden Hill House reflect George Alfred's taste for modernity and high Victorian style. The drawing room was for entertaining, with tall sash windows that overlook the landscaped park, and the furnishes in dark wood, speaking of modern Victorian taste. The dining room played host to formal meals, which would have been presided by over George Alfred, and had heavy Victorian sideboards and rich decorations. The study here holds one of the most personal touches, the desks where George Alfred and his adopted daughters worked side by side. These shared spaces offer a glimpse into family intimacy, which was often quite unusual for the time. Upstairs, the bedrooms carried the hallmarks of late Victorian domestic life. Wallpapered walls with heavy bedsteads and washing stands before bathrooms became commonplace. Note that upstairs there's not many rooms open, as this museum is often used as a wedding venue, particularly in the summer. But each room that there is reflects not only comfort, but the social aspirations of a man keen to show that he was a modern, respectable Victorian gentleman. I know that many of you that watch my videos are big fans of this kind of decor, particularly the William Morris wallpaper. So I'm going to give you a few minutes just to look round the remainder of the house, nice and quietly, until I continue. What I most loved about this house though, and what came to me as a wonderful surprise, was a window into the world of the servants who lived here during the late Victorian and Edwardian periods. You know that nothing gives Lucy a buzz more than the lives of them downstairs. The 1911 census gives us names like Annie Blozzard, Annie Cooksey, Lillian Slanton, Betsy Willits, Fanny Haywood, Hannah Bird. These women worked from dawn until late at night here, keeping the house immaculate and the routines running smoothly. Interestingly, all the servants here were female, George Alfred saying he found the company of males boisterous. The housekeeper's room served as her office and living space where she would do wages, rotas, manage supplies, bring in orders. Younger servants here would have slept in the attic rooms, where they slept on iron bedsteads with thin blankets and little in the way of privacy or comfort. They shared their lives communally with the other servants. Wages were low, around £12 to £20 a year, and this may include your board and lodging, but sometimes you may have to pay a small supplement out of your wages. For many women from working class families, service offered security and respectability compared to factory work. Also, the quarters in which they lived may well have been better than their family home locally. Service, however, as you can imagine, was relentless. Lifting heavy coal, scrubbing floors, polishing boots, laundering linen, and carrying endless trays of food from the kitchen to the dining room. And yet the women that worked in service often formed their own communities. The bond between maids, cooks and housekeepers could last a lifetime. Unlike aristocratic households with dozens of staff, Haden Hill was run by a small, tight-knit team of women. And that makes the names we have even more precious, with tangible links to the real people who worked here. I thought Haden Hill House felt unusually personal. It's not grand, it's not a palace, it's not a stately home, built on centuries of family heritage. And its survival alongside the Tudor Old Hall makes it unique. Two domestic histories side by side, bridging the medieval, the Tudor, the Georgian and the Victorian eras. When George Alfred died in 1921, there was no direct heir. And like I said, this meant that the estate was bought by the public in 1922. During World War II, ration book distribution happened here, and emergency accommodation was provided from the house for bombed out local families. Later, the house went on to be a conference centre. I'm guessing this was a commercial decision, but one that removed much of the old features from the house, including kitchens and rooms in the old hall. A major restoration programme ran between the year 2000 and 2007 by Sandwell Council with National Lottery funding. And since then, the park has repeatedly received Green Flag and Green Heritage Awards. Haden Hill House, folks, is free to enter and also offers a small honesty cafe with refreshments. It's quiet and low key, and on this day I was the only visitor. But places like this, like I always say, need visitors to survive. If you're heading to the Black Country Museum, which is only several miles away, consider making Haden Hill part of your itinerary to see this lovely forgotten museum for yourself. As always, thank you for watching today's video. I love going to these little hidden museums. They're more of a challenge to research, which is a big tick from me. And I love bringing these places to life because I passionately don't want to lose them. By you watching these videos, your sharing, your support, your comments, you're helping me on this little mission to make it happen. and it is so appreciated. So as always, I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Until the next one, see you later. Goodbye.